There's Jen.
Are you ready to turn up the volume? Introducing Roadworks Records, the podcast from Detroit, the podcast with grit. Your new go-to for real talk on everything entertainment, from Detroit's gritty streets to the global scene. Yeah, hosted by me. You know who I am, T-Money Green, that brought you the bass to Death Row Records back in the heyday. And I got three of the smartest ladies with me. Jen Shagner, our Jen with the juice. We got Gail Suhu, and we got Jackie Wallace. Listen, our show is raw, unfiltered, and it's packed with the hottest trends, artist drops, and the inside stories you won't want to miss. So listen, tune in to Roadwork Records, the podcast. It's where Detroit grit meets the world stage. Don't miss out. Check us out. Roadwork Records on Facebook for more details. Streaming everywhere. Be there.
Okay, be there. Be there.
Be there. We're here.
Be there. We're here.
Oh, man,
We're here with all of our friends today.
Wow, man, we got a special show today.
We do.
We
It's
have a full
This
house.
is crazy.
Full
I ain't
house
even
here.
Special than
Gonna, I ain't even gonna say nothing crazy to it.
No.
I'm gonna be-
No.
not today.
Today's an
I'll tell you why,
important
T. You don't need to say anything crazy because today's story is
crazy enough.
it's
It is
crazy
crazy.
enough. I don't think you have to
Damn.
add to
We never had that before,
Mm,
Bill. It
no.
would take Bill.
It's crazy because
Bring
it's
in
real. And
It's real.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's a real deal.
Mhm. Yep. So we have a full hour and a half today of just an incredible, unbelievable story. We are not going to do our Jen and Juice segment this week, but guess what? We're spiking it up next week, right, Jen?
We
Oh,
are.
yeah.
That's
All right.
right. Oh, there's so
Oh,
much.
Yes, I bet. Okay,
take
so
it.
Yeah, he got the time.
Anyway.
Oh, Joe did it.
all right, imagine spending 48 and a half years in prison for a crime you didn't commit. Hard to imagine this, but that was Raymond Gray's reality. But through it all, his spirit remained unbroken. Although they chained my hands, they never chained my mind, he once said. Ray's story is one of unimaginable injustice, resilience, and the power of strangers who fought for his freedom. His journey reminds us that miracles can come from unexpected places at unexpected times. And we are honored to have him in the studio with us today. And he brought his whole crew with him. So in this special episode, we're also joined by Bill Proctor, award-winning investigative reporter and founder of Proctor Consulting and Investigative Group. And we can also add author to his title of his soon-to-be released new book, Truth Be Damned. And we also have the lovely Shelby Shoup, a civic media consultant, filmmaker, and a key player in the startup and development of Seeking Justice. Together, they'll share their relentless work to correct the wrongs that kept Ray behind bars for nearly 5 decades. This is a powerful story today, a powerful conversation about survival, hope, and the fight for justice. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you for
Yeah.
having us.
Yeah. Ray, I'm going to start off with you. And what I want to know, because I've listened to a lot of the interviews you did, and the story was just, it's still mind-blowing to think that something like that could happen in this country. So what I want to start off with is, who was Ray Gray before you heard the words guilty and your life changed for 48 and a half years? Who was Ray Gray?
Well, I had
Let me have you talk.
I always wanted to be an artist,
Okay.
and even at 5 years old, I had won a little contest to be in the Detroit Institute of Arts. They had a children's section,
Oh, wow.
so art was always a part of my life. My father was an artist,
Okay.
and I had a brother that was a musician. He played a trumpet. My father loved boxing, and somehow I gravitated towards that too.
Okay.
And being a boxer and an artist, art. My mother wanted me to be an artist. My father gravitated more toward boxing and art, but
Hmm.
my mother didn't like the boxing part. But And the day that this happened, you know, I was finna turn pro as a boxer.
Really?
And my mother had secretly entered me into an art school. So I was getting a portfolio ready for that and thoughts of turning pro as a boxer. I had won the Golden Gloves 4 times.
Wow.
And I had an older brother. I had, 6 of us, 3 boys and 3 girls. My brother and sister were, their younger brother was 9 and 10 years old when I went to prison.
Oh,
So I missed a
wow.
lot of their growing up.
Right.
But unfortunately, I had a brother that lost his life during a robbery of in 1972. And it hurt me so bad that that's the only thing I can remember of 1972 was the
Wow.
loss of him.
Was that the
Uh,
same year? That
I got arrested in 73. I was
okay.
still mourning.
Wow.
I come up during the period of the radical 60s, and I
Mm.
gravitated more towards the left, the Black Panther Party, the Republican New Africa, Malcolm X. In fact, I went to see Malcolm at the King Solomon Baptist Church in 1964.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was there twice. Malcolm X had an influence on me.
In which way?
Well, it came to Detroit maybe the day after the bombing of his house.
Mm-hmm.
And it was some elements of Malcolm that reminded me of my father. My father used to always say the most valuable thing that you have is your word. And Malcolm was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Even though his house had been bombed, he still made the date to the King Solomon Baptist Church. The interesting thing about that is that's the same gym that I started boxing at, the King Solomon
Really?
Baptist Church. And they had a church called the Shrine of the Black Madonna. And Albert Clegg was one that sponsored Malcolm to be there. During the age of Vietnam, I almost got locked up for that because the draft, I was sort of, like I said, left leaning,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't think that the Vietnam War was right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was leaning towards activism.
Mm-hmm.
The death of my brother was twofold, that he, black on black crime, and then for this to happen made it even more traumatic. And my father always taught us that that one should always seek a peaceful approach to any conflict. So it was Martin Luther King's and Malcolm. So there's a lot of contradictions that you had to reconcile. And so that part, the violence part, I wasn't too big on. And I found out that it was best to always seek a peaceful way first,
Okay.
even in global conflicts,
Mm-hmm.
instead of resorting to violence. And the thought of a man losing his life in a robbery or money for any reason like that hurt me. Not just the sentence, but just the thought of that, of taking someone's life, because I know how I felt about my brother and
Yeah.
about the community, and the drugs and the things that were destroying the community. And so that's who I was.
Wow. So prior to what happened with your brother, you had these big dreams and goals. I
Yes.
mean, life was good.
Yes,
You were
yes,
working towards
yes,
things.
yes. And didn't engage in criminal activity other than I tried to drive a car one time, and I drove to a gas station and parked the car, and the police came up, and I didn't have a license, and to this day I don't know how to drive a car. So that was the only encounter with the law. There was a big problem with the police department during this era, the 10th precinct in particular. The part of the problem was too, there was no DNA, and so it was difficult to
Mhm.
prove your innocence. On another note, I went to a fight with Reuben Hurricane Carter. He fought a guy out of our gym called Wilbur Skeeter McClure, who had won the Olympics with Muhammad Ali in 1960.
Oh, wow.
And it's strange because I went to the fight, and Reuben Carter ended up getting wrongly convicted as well.
Really?
Yeah, that's the Hurricane. They made a movie.
Yeah, Hurricane
Denzel
Carter.
Washington.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I got convicted shortly after him. You know, both of us was boxers. Both of us were
Wow.
convicted. So that's who Red Gray was. So kind of long-winded.
So, no, that's okay, because I wanted to
Shares a lot.
wanted to get a little bit of that setup
probably
of
more
what
than
life
that.
was like. Because again, it's so hard to imagine and understand how this could happen to somebody who's just working towards their dreams and goals.
Just to finish the foundational elements, and Ray has told the story so many times. I always think of it as 1, 2, 3, his life foundation. Not only was he a budding artist, not only was he a championship amateur boxer about to turn pro, but he also had the skill of being a hairdresser.
Oh, yeah.
And so as a hairdresser, he had clients in his neighborhood lined up for
Wow.
his services. So he was fully involved in a life that was about to explode for the positive. And then come the Detroit police. I'll let Ray tell the rest of
Jeez.
the horrible story, but
Wow.
just understand this
Yeah.
was a man who was fully prepared to do wonderful at life.
See, and that I'm glad you said that, because that's the part I think most people miss and don't understand. We tend to read the headlines and think, okay, well, what did he do, or what happened, or it's not supposed to happen to people that have this kind of life going on.
Right.
So, okay, so then the police come.
Well, back up for a moment.
Yeah.
I'm going to
You
have
have
you
to be
get a
very,
little closer
you have
here.
to be very careful of the company that you keep.
Mhm.
That was another mistake that I made. At the time, I had hair. I had long hair, and it was straight and kind of curly. That was not. It wasn't a perm or nothing. My hair was
Mhm.
naturally long.
Yeah.
And it was about down to here. I had a mustache, the Fu Manchu mustache. This played a very important role in me getting convicted.
Oh,
I'm wrongly convicted. I met a girl. Boy, did that change my life. What a difference did they make. Who,
Boy.
unfortunately, was in the drug business.
mm,
Okay, a little more involved than I had realized. But there was another girl that I was more interested in, who I was styling her hair the day that this happened.
Mhm.
The girl in question is the girl that was involved in this case. She came over and was a little messed up because she thought I was messing with this other girl. Shortly after her arrival, 2 men came to my house. One who I knew was sort of a AWOL from the Army.
okay.
Now, mind you, this was during the Vietnam thing, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew him,
Mm-hmm.
but he had a guy with him that I didn't know. He had a Fu Manchu mustache,
Oh, really?
and he had a black hat and a black coat. This is important, this black coat.
Mm-hmm.
I had a black coat too that my sister had made me, but it was a maxi coat.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is during the Superfly
Right.
era, so
Yeah,
that,
gotcha.
that look. So he came over. The tall guy's name was Tyrone. He unfortunately got hooked on drugs in the Army. The other guy, again, didn't really say much. I didn't know his name or
Mhm.
didn't know him. So he asked me, do I know where to get drugs? No, I don't know about that, man. I know guys that do that, but I was not interested.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing a portfolio, trying to get that ready for the next day.
Wow.
this girl that my acquaintance said, I know where to get some drugs. She just hyped up. In retrospect, it seems as if she may have knew this guy.
Mm.
You know, I don't know if this is a setup or what, but anyway,
Mhm.
she hyped up that she know where to get drugs. So she left with them. I remained at home and
Working
doing
on
my
your
hair,
dreams.
working on my dreams, my
Mhm.
drawings and paintings and so
Mhm.
forth. A few hours later, I get a call from the police department, and it's her. I said, what happened? What's wrong? She said, two guys. She didn't say them. She just said two guys came in and shot Ruben. I'm like, wow, that's terrible.
Mhm.
So she claimed that she went to buy the drugs, and the guys were supposed to stay in the car, but yet they got out the car and went in. And as she knocked on the door, they came in. When they came in, they told everybody to lay on the floor. So the identification was not looking at like I'm looking at you. The
Mhm.
identification was from people looking upward.
Okay.
And it reminded me this guy had a big mustache, just like mine,
Mhm.
but he had an afro. He had a black coat and a hat. So no one actually seen the people straight ahead.
Yeah.
But they did notice the mustache, and he had what they call bulbous eyes. He had these real big eyes.
Okay.
They thought the victims thought that Barbara, her name is Barbara, that she had something to do with this, and therefore I had to have something to do with it because I was a boyfriend. So the guy with her must have been me,
Mm.
Mhm.
which it wasn't. As they were leaving, come to find out both these guys were drug addicts, so they were trying to take the TV and some items.
Mhm.
As they were, Tyrone was 6'3". Charles is the guy who actually did the murder, was 5'8". I'm 5'7".
Oh wow.
As they were leaving, Tyrone ran out the building. The Reuben, the victim, got up off the floor and rushed him. And he picked up a table, took this table and put his whole hand on the table to prevent Reuben from in this tussle. So Reuben kept pressing him with the table, and he shot through the table.
Oh
Shot him.
wow.
So his whole handprint is on the table.
Mhm.
His print.
Mhm.
And let me back up a little bit. Prior to that, they went in the closet and took he said, what is that in the closet? It was coming to find out it was a movie projector. So they go in the closet and he takes the movie projector, set it on the floor. Again, his fingerprints is on the
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
movie projector. I get arrested. Unknown to me, she is being interviewed, and everyone is saying, they didn't have anything to do with it. She don't know nothing about it. As I'm going to the police car, what's the name of the group? The group War is doing a show at the Coba Hall.
Okay.
Mm.
Mhm.
I said, yeah, we won't be listening to this jungle music. And so, little racial slurs or whatever.
Mhm.
So I don't know what y'all talking about. So I'm confident that
Yeah.
when I go to the lineup, I'm not going to get picked out. So I didn't
Were
do
you
it.
shocked that you were even going to the lineup?
Yeah.
I mean, you're working on your portfolio.
In fact, they arrested my sister's boyfriend. He was at the house. I seen the police in front of my house, but the guy they arrested, he's about 6 feet tall. He don't look nothing like me. So I'm thinking, what they arresting him for? So they look at the picture and see that he's not the one. So they get me. So as I'm going to the police station, I'm so confident that
This is a mistake.
Yes, this is a mistake.
Yeah.
We'll straighten it out.
Mhm.
I get to the police station. I get in the cell. I'm there for about an hour.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there, and the next thing I know, I hear something say click, click, and I look up, and there's a gun pointed at me. Unknown to me, the deceased had a brother that was a police cadet at the time. When I seen it, I thought it was the janitor, but it wasn't, didn't have a police outfit on.
Mhm.
So I'm like, wow, how this guy? So he said, you killed my brother. I said, I didn't kill your brother. He said, I know that bitch, which is our word, had something to do with it. I said, I don't know if she had nothing to do with it or not. I didn't kill your brother. And I'm still mourning the death of my own brother.
Right.
So I can feel his pain, but
Mhm.
I didn't kill him. And where did he get this gun? How was he able to get that? So I look and I see the sergeant, the officer in charge of the case, standing behind him. So I said, man, y'all have to get me out of this cell. So he said, well, you don't get picked out. I said, no, I'm not. I said, you'll see when I get in the lineup, I'm not going to get picked out because I didn't do it.
Right.
He said, I guarantee you don't get picked out. I'm like, how is he so certain?
Mm.
So now when they leave, I said, man, you got to get me out of the cell. There's no one next to me, and the cell's next to me. So how can I prove this? Nowadays you got cameras everywhere, and
Right.
everybody got a camera on their cell
Phones. Yeah.
phone, and you can ping in the cell phone.
Right.
If they had cell phones then, I probably wouldn't have went to prison.
Right.
So I go in the lineup. I'm the only one in the lineup with a mustache.
Mm.
Where you get these guys from?
Wow.
Not only the only one with a mustache, I got this big mustache,
Mm-hmm.
and they stand me next to this tall guy, who was like a surrogate of Tyrone Pugh. So I'm standing there next to this tall guy, and the lady picked me out so quick that the police officer just wait, let him step up first. So it's almost like, almost, that it was already set up to pick me out, the guy with that big mustache. That's like saying a person with a big red nose.
Right.
Can you see the person with the big red nose? I'm the
That's
only
the
one with a red
person.
nose.
Yeah.
That's him.
Mm-hmm.
Mustache. Because that was part of the identification, this big mustache.
Now, let me ask you something. What about Barbara? Didn't she say he wasn't even there?
That yes, she did. She did.
She did?
She did. It wasn't me. The witnesses kept saying he favors. He favors the guy. But a donkey favors a zebra. A donkey favors a horse.
Right.
But it's not a horse. They favor. Favor is,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
is a total difference there. So the one that kept saying in favor, they didn't bring her to the lineup. They brought her this other lady who claimed that now she still claimed that the nose is something about the nose.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of saying it was the nose, that's all they could see really was the nose. And my nose has a flare. This guy had a flare in his nose too. There was some similarities, but not that much. I mean,
Yeah.
I look like
Mhm.
him that much. I get picked out,
Wow.
and I'm shocked. I go to the county jail. As soon as I go in the cell, they had the opening cell. Tyrone is there. He walks in. This is a dog guy. What are you doing here? Somebody, what y'all did? This thing that y'all did, unknown to me. Charlie, the guy who killed the murder, is in the cell, in the adjacent cell next to the holding cell. So all three of us is
Oh,
locked up
wow.
for different reasons. I don't know Charlie's name. This is when I get his name. I find out this guy's asking me, they got me in prison for something that y'all did. I'm gonna help you out. So the police is coming and get him every other day, and he's going be interviewed. And he's coming back with hamburgers and French fries and stuff. Where you getting all this stuff with malts and stuff? So I'm saying, finish, man, that guy's just trying to pin this stuff on you. A friend of mine that I meet in prison gets out. So I said, go to my house and tell my father and them that I ran into the guys who actually committed this crime.
Did you have any contact with your dad? Like, was your father able to go see you, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was
Okay.
He was there to visit me. I go to court.
Now, what are you thinking when you're going to court? Because you already got picked out in a lineup. So by the time you get to court, what's going through your mind? Like, do you think, okay, today I'm getting out, this is going to be done, or were you
Well,
starting to think, I don't know about this?
Thinking I'm
Was
in the
Marie the person that picked you
I
out?
think I'm in the
lineup?
charger. Yes.
Okay.
Marie, and it was Marie and Jackie. And um, it was Marie and Jackie. But Jackie didn't go. Marie did. And at the time, she wasn't that certain. And they looked at photographs. At first, they initially had a photograph lineup before they had the physical lineup. But the photograph lineup, she couldn't make an identification.
Mhm.
It was, and so the police reasoned that we might have a problem with this one. Let's arrange the lineup, with the tall guy and the mustache, where you could, as if they told him to shave. I didn't do anything to try to
Mhm.
make myself look different. I didn't cut
Right.
my hair. I didn't take my mustache off. Any of
You
that.
didn't have to. You were
Right,
innocent.
right,
You didn't
right.
do it.
Right. And I was
Yeah.
real
No, he
skinny
told him
then.
to shave.
I was about 123 pounds. Fast forward, I get convicted. Oh, let me back up again. I had a bench trial. The reason I had a bench trial was the judge was sort of an activist judge, him and Kenny Cockrell. And on the advice of my lawyer, well, he's an activist and how the police department is and, the corruption and so forth. And the police didn't want to solve the case. They wanted to just
Be
close
done
the
with
case,
it.
be
Yeah.
done with it.
Hmm.
Because as the case progressed and the years went by, it was discovered evidence that wasn't disclosed to me, and some of the evidence was we would get documents that was redacted, and they were claiming that they couldn't disclose this because they had open investigation, which they didn't. They weren't investigating. Tyrone, the tall individual, was murdered, ironically, by the police in 1978, climbing out of a window.
Oh, wow.
He
Hmm.
said he was armed. He wasn't. And they shot him in the back and killed him. I get to prison. And who do I see there but Charlie Matthews? That's the individual that committed the murder.
Mm.
I'm in quarantine. In fact, I'm not behind the walls yet. I'm in the walls. I'm in my first day there. I see him. He don't know who I am, but I know who he is. He walks by, and I'm thinking, damn, that's the guy that committed this murder. So I'm thinking now, how am I going to approach him?
Right.
Let him know that you got me in here for something that you did.
Right.
I didn't want to go to Ionia. I wanted to go inside Jackson. I wanted to be around, an older group of prisoners. I was young enough to go to Ionia, which they wanted to see me, but I want to go in here with him.
Did he ever admit it?
Oh, yeah, he definitely admitted it.
Oh, he did?
Oh, he admitted it. He
Okay.
admitted it. I approached him. He didn't admit it at first.
When did you approach him? Like, how long were you in before you approached him?
I came in 73. Somehow he went to, oh, this is interesting. He came in, they sent him to trustee. He had heard that I'd been arrested for this murder. So he ran off. He went to trustee. He ran off as soon as the first day he got to trustee. He said, boy, this murder case, they got me for it, but he thinking maybe Tyrone finger him. So, because Tyrone is locked up too. They got all three of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I go inside. He's not there. This is 1973. In 1978, he committed a crime similar to the one that
You got in trouble for it.
The same kind of MO, same kind of method. Goes in, one guy comes in with a shotgun, get on the floor. That was his method.
Oh, wow.
So 1978, he comes back. the prison, I confronted him. This man, he got me, that thing that y'all did. So he said, yeah, man. He said, he did it. But I said, well, you're going to find a way to help me.
Mhm.
Maybe we can find a way to get you some immunity or something.
Mhm.
So he says, whatever happened to that girl? And what evidence did they have against you? Now, being wrongly convicted, that's the only part you know. I didn't know what went on in that building. I didn't know that
Right.
he had his hand on the table, or
Right.
I didn't know.
They don't share that
Right,
stuff
right.
with you, right?
So he said, well, what evidence did they have? Did they get your fingerprints? I said, I couldn't get my fingerprints. It wasn't me. Did they get this? I said, I don't know, man. Here's the record.
Why do you think he was asking you that?
Because he was wanting to try to get immunity. He didn't want anything that would connect him, because he
Oh.
knew that my fingerprints couldn't have possibly been there.
Mm.
Did they have his fingerprints? If they had your fingerprints, then they would
Okay.
have you.
Mhm.
But even if they had his fingerprints, they still would have tried to convict me. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So I said, no, they ain't got none of that, man. They had no, all they said was, I look like you, Well, okay, he signed the affidavit. It's 1980. In the affidavit, he says that I didn't have anything to do with it, but that Tyrone did the shooting.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if Tyrone did the shooting or he did the shooting. I know I didn't do the shooting.
Right. Right. Did you have an attorney at that time?
Yes. And this is the first capital case that he had ever taken,
Mhm.
And Richard Ronash. I was supposed to get the father, ended up getting the son. Along the way, I had a big issue with lawyers. So we go to court. The lawyer at this time tried to get immunity, didn't know that immunity has never been granted to a potential assailant.
Okay.
And it's not in the power of the judge to do it, but to the prosecutor. The prosecutor a lot of times give mafiosos immunity, and some of them might hit me and kill 20, 30 people just to get one. The John Gotti case was an example of that. So we get to court. They don't give him immunity, but before he gets on the stand, he says that he has firsthand knowledge of this murder. Firsthand knowledge, and that firsthand knowledge is knowledge of actually being there, not secondhand knowledge,
Right.
hearsay, firsthand.
Right.
So he places himself there. And before he can continue to talk, the prosecutor said, that you could be prosecuted, this, that, and other. So the judge stops it and tells him he has the right to remain silent and so forth and so forth. So then he takes the fifth.
He took the fifth?
Fifth. So he didn't question him any longer. So now I get convicted. And looking back at it, it may have made a difference if Marie and Jackie, the witnesses, had been in the court and actually seen him and me together, because that's the guy who made a mistake. He wasn't. That was something I had brought up to the lawyer. Well, why is they here? Why is Barbara here? Let them see us together. See this. Look at this guy. So we go back. So
was your lawyer trying to do the same thing? Just wrap this up so he can get on to the next case, or?
He ended up having a bad nervous breakdown too. So he was.
Man, it was one strike after another.
Another strike.
Jeez.
So nothing happened. Fast forward to another part of the problem was being wrongly convicted. I stayed in the law library, but it was hard finding cases of. There was a lot of people that was wrongly convicted, but there's hardly no cases on it because people believe that seeing is believing. You
Mhm.
believe that all prisoners say that they're innocent, so Reuben Carter was a case that had a high profile, but there was no DNA. And part of the problem is that a lot of the police want to close a case.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, during the time that this case happened, the 10th precinct, in fact, they went in front of the same judge. The 10th precinct got raided like a drug house or something, and it was full of corruption.
Wow.
What was his name? Hart ended up going to prison. So it was a lot of corruption.
So how long were you in there before that second court case? Like was that like 2 years?
10 years.
Oh, it was 10 years before the second case?
You mean when I went back to court? That
Yeah.
was in 81. I went back to court in 81.
So at that time, were you still thinking, I'm going to get out? This doesn't happen in our country. This is not our system. Like, were you still really?
Yeah.
You still had hope.
I never lost hope.
Were you
I
still
never-
thinking about your dreams and being a boxer? Were those things still things
Well,
that you
yeah,
thought about?
Yeah, I did some boxing in prison. matter of
You
fact.
did.
But art was almost like a religion to me.
Mhm.
Art was extremely important.
How did it help you?
Well, it helped me put my feelings into my work
Mm,
and express things I could express artistically more so than verbally,
mm, okay.
And it was a way of keeping in touch with the outside world. And to my good fortune, it was art that I met my wife, who became my biggest advocate, and so
Tell us that part of the story because we need some good here.
that was a blessing.
Because and your wife's name is Barb. She's here today, and she was an art teacher or is an art teacher, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So-
She had a program. And I remember telling her that I don't paint pretty pictures because a lot of the pictures were dealing with struggle. And
Yeah. How could they be pretty?
stuff.
Right.
And,
There was nothing pretty going
yeah,
on.
and art was. I didn't look at it from a financial point of view. I looked at it that it was a way of therapy.
And
It was a
distraction,
spirit-
probably.
Yeah,
Right.
distraction
Mhm.
and spirituality.
Mhm.
And so I had a dream of a woman coming into my life with a beret on like this and a poncho. And when I met her, she had that on.
Really?
That convinced
Wow.
me that there's something great in this world. There's a God.
Wow. Did you ever lose faith?
No,
You didn't.
no.
Never
no.
got mad at God?
Well, I felt that God is indifferent sometimes. He let us work this stuff out, and things happen in our lives that we have to be able to read the signs. It's like looking at a stop sign, a street light. Signs are there for a reason.
What do you think the reason was? Why do you have to go through this kind of suffering?
That's an interesting question. I was asked once about a wasted life, a wasted days. And I don't look at things being wasted in that sense. That because each day I tried to do something positive, uplifting.
Did you have that same attitude while you were in prison?
Right. The first day in prison, I told myself that I was not going to allow it to interfere with my humanity. And I've seen a lot of violence.
Mhm.
And I used the credo that, again, if you can reach a situation peacefully, then that's the course you should pursue first.
And did you keep that
I
mindset
kept that.
for 48 and a half years?
Well, because I mitigated a lot of conflicts between individuals that
Mhm.
otherwise might stab this person. I would even pay off some of the debts. I told him, man, you ain't got to stab the guy about that. You know, blah, blah.
Really?
And so, yeah, I became sort of like a prison uh, advocate, counselor,
Counselor,
and
like the go-to
mediator.
mediator.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that was pretty much my whole bit doing that.
When did you like? When did you start losing hope in terms of getting out? Like, was there a point where you started saying, "This is where this is going to
Well,
end"?
the one of the hardest points was the parole board, which Bill was there. The Department of Corrections don't believe in wrongly convicted. You'll never get out saying that. It could be Jesus Christ. He's not getting out if you're saying he's innocent. I guess they look at it that if the court sent you here, then the courts have to get you out. I remember talking to a psychiatrist once, and he said we was painting some stuff on the wall of his office, and a friend of mine, another artist, was getting ready to go to the parole board. So the psychiatrist, in a case like mine, I have to see a psychiatrist before I go.
Mhm.
But I hadn't seen the parole board yet on this particular one. So he said he wanted a picture. I had painted a picture of a man sitting in a seat. No, it wasn't a man. It was just a seat with like a teddy bear and things that
Mhm.
some candy or something of
Mhm.
your childhood, because a lot of these things shape who you are.
Mhm.
And he was confronting his past. So the psychiatrist liked that. He said, man, I want you to paint something like that on the wall with people sitting around it with the empty chair. It's okay. That's what she said. The empty chair is the victim. And so, you're saying, I'm sorry to the victim, this, that. And I said, well, what if the prisoner is the victim?
Mhm.
What if the prisoner is in it for something he didn't do? So that's, what you mean something they do? He's in here because for what he did. I said, no. You never even thought that a person could be in it for something they didn't do? And that could create problems within his psyche. Because if I'm innocent,
Right.
and I got to tell you that I'm guilty and I feel this and that for something I didn't do, then I'm lying. That's a lie within yourself. And he had never thought of that. So he got kind of angry. And my comrade got a little angry too. Why'd you ask that guy that question? I said, because it's true.
Wow.
I mean, if it's something to do, I got to say I did it and I feel remorse and this, that, and other for something I didn't do.
So you stuck to your
I
word.
stuck to it.
Exactly what your dad told you,
right,
taught you.
And so it comes with a price, and life is like that. It comes with a. Are you willing to make this sacrifice? Even at your detriment.
That's a big price.
It's a big price to pay. And false hope, for example.
Mhm.
False hope. I mean, we live in a world with contradictions. We try to reconcile the contradictions. We have hope, then we have false hope.
Right.
False hope even has a value because it could prevent you from slitting your own throat.
Mhm.
Hope against hope. And I've seen some situations that looked impossible, but yet something happened. Something broke where you can
And became possible.
see a way out.
Which kind of happened here.
And it happened as a result of that lady there.
So it started with Barb.
She was like the match.
So let's talk about that then. How did that happen with Bill and Shelby? Like, did you know who they were?
Well, she probably wasn't even born yet, but
not yet, not in this storyline yet.
Oh, that's true.
I knew who Bill was.
You knew him before he got involved.
He didn't know me. I knew.
You knew from Channel 7. Okay.
And he had a case. Kinsu, he was representing that case, and I said, "Oh, he's interested." I didn't know that he was interested in wrongful convictions,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's how was introduced to him.
So was that through Barb?
Well, yeah, just about everybody that joined the team was because of her. As I said, she was the match that made it spread. Because me being in prison,
Mhm.
I couldn't physically
Right.
meet these people. So I would say, what about this? What about that? And through the artwork, I got more exposure, to people through the art. So I think that every human is born with something noble
Mhm.
within
Agree.
themselves. We all have gifts within ourselves.
Right.
And we should seek those things. If not, then we turn, to do some things that are not conducive for the upliftment of mankind.
Right.
So,
So let me ask you this: how long were you? How much time had you served before you heard that Bill was coming to see you?
That was what? When was that, babe?
Do you know?
You were at Ryan.
I was at Ryan. That was
Like, was it 20 years, 30 years?
like
20.
90.
20? Okay.
Yeah, about 20 years.
So 20 years, and then what happens? Like they come and they say some Bill Proctor's here to see you. How did that work out?
Oh boy, they were so impressed by that. The prison. Usually, when you get a visit, they shake you down.
Mhm.
They didn't even pat me down. All they wanted to know was, "What y'all talking about? What's the Bill Proctor coming in for? What's going on? What did you say about us?" So yeah, that was something. That was the top of the
I
town.
can't imagine
Just-
what you must have felt like that day after 20 years of nobody listening, and then you get somebody like Bill Proctor.
It's like a new hope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's interesting you
So
say
do you
that.
believe in it right quick? Like,
Huh?
would you believe in it? Like sometimes
Well-
you say, "Oh, this is cool," but I don't
Right.
know.
Like I'm here to help. And
No,
Yeah.
Right.
I used to have this recurring dream sometimes that I was like in a window, like the dog in a window or something. There was a two-way mirror,
Mm.
and I would be screaming for people walking by, "Hey, help! Hey, come!"
And nobody's
help me, help me.
listening.
And they're looking at the window, but they ain't actually seeing me,
Mm.
and they're not hearing me.
Right.
And I felt that I always had this recurring dream like that I'm screaming at the top of my voice and no one is hearing me
Yeah.
and seeing me.
Wow.
And then when she came into my life, it was like a little crack in the hole.
Mhm.
Maybe I can crack the window a little bit and look out. And so when Bill and others start coming on, well, I feel hopeful now. And so even though we're having these setbacks and these struggles and stuff, you just have to keep your eye on the prize, and you just have to keep knocking and knocking and knocking. And so
after
that
all
made a
that
difference.
time, you
Yeah.
can still keep your eye on the prize. Like, it's mind blowing to me that just didn't break you. Like, I don't understand how
Yeah,
you
out of
didn't
the
sit
pain
and
or
say, this is where it's going to end. Forget it. Thanks, Bill. It's
Yeah.
nice meeting you,
Yeah,
but
right.
Well, there were moments where that happened, and I remember telling Barb, my wife, to just leave me, and this is I'm not ever getting out, and this is something that I don't want to interfere with your life,
Yeah.
wow.
and she wouldn't. I remember when I first told her my situation, I got life. I said, we got to do something about that. I'm like, what? A lot of times people,
They back off.
they back off.
Yeah.
Right? They run like
Right.
righteous when the light come
You
on.
got to be guilty.
Did she
Right.
know your
Right.
story? Like when you like first started seeing her and stuff, did she know your story? Was she familiar with your background at that point?
No,
Okay.
no.
So it was strictly the good looks and everything like that.
Well,
She,
unfortunately, a lot of prisoners take unfair advantage of people, particularly women. And I was real hesitant to take any gifts or anything like that, or anything like that, because I didn't want to run her away. But the fact that when I met her, she had this cap on made me say, this is
You dreamt it.
this is from above. This
Mhm.
is meant to be.
Right.
You know,
I got you.
there's something about this.
Yeah, that
particular
happens.
situation. Exactly.
Do you think you would have been as persistent if you hadn't had that dream?
No, I think that these signs, again, being able to be quiet and listen to the inner workings of your mind, so you can receive things, and sometimes it's in the darkest places,
Yeah.
that there's always a spark of light.
Right.
So that made a difference,
That's great.
and then with Bill, the TV, shed light on the injustice. One of the things with wrongful convictions or convictions, period, when the police come on a crime scene, and maybe that's the way it should be, but if they're honest, and have integrity, that makes a difference. When the police come on a crime scene, generally the person who committed the crime is not there.
Right.
So that means that they got all this evidence of things they pick up. They can put money in their pocket, stash it, or whatever. And so they can decide what they want to put forth and what they want to hold back on. And it's that creates the problem. Because I found out later that Barbara Hill was being treated as if she was a culprit, that she had been responsible. So she wasn't being treated as an eyewitness. She was being treated as a suspect. And as they started closing in on her, she gave up the ghost. She said that the guy's name was Charlie. I never knew that. I know she said nothing like that. But the police, so they had the name of the person who actually did it. They even had Tyrone Pugh's name, I remember we had a prosecutor that claimed they had other evidence on me, and even if the fingerprints, we did find some fingerprints. They wasn't mine. Even if the fingerprints matched the killer, that wouldn't release me. I'm like, what? So it's you and Charlie. So how could that be if one guy is 6'3"? So now y'all done shrunk us?
Mm-hmm.
So they were so convinced of keeping me in prison that even though the guy's tall, and granted, me and Charlie is near the same height, and even if his fingerprints proved that he was there, they still want to keep me locked up. So that part, there were parts that were very painful.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that Tony asked Bill a few weeks ago when we interviewed Bill. You said, and to me, that was kind of the whole, I thought you were setting up this interview the way you asked that question. But one of the question was, he never got angry or bitter. Or, I mean, how do you tell yourself, mankind, there's a lot of good people out there, when this happens to you, this kind of injustice? It doesn't make sense.
Well, you have to have something to channel it into. It's like waste. You have to have something to flush it down. You have to have something to, an outlet.
Is that what art did for you?
Yes. And the people in my life, the people who you can vent to. In 2012, the parole board, I had a public hearing. And I remember prior to the public hearing, I went to the parole board. And I got a card that was made of some artwork that I had done. And it was from Hurricane Carter. He was a part of the AWIC, the Canadian Innocent Project. And he was saying, keep hope and never give up or whatever. So when I go to the parole board, now it's different. You have to see it on a TV screen. And I kept thinking, I know they don't like this innocent thing. But I got to stick with it. This is a medicine. And prior to that, I had to see a psychiatrist. So I tell a psychiatrist, I explain what happened, that two men came in, they robbed, they made in the floor, and the man was killed. Is what happened. I didn't say I did it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And he couldn't figure that out. He kept saying, something's wrong, something's with this. But I had told us that this is going to be a little different than most of the people that you encounter. So he thought I was being deceitful. I said, no, this is what happened. I didn't do it. I told you that initially. And at this time, I had been on television, had been connected with Bill Proctor, had been in the newspaper. So he approved me going to the pro board. So I went to the pro board. She said, she was from Detroit, matter of fact. And when I looked at the screen, I seen the word Jesus on the stuff like, wow, maybe I'm in the wrong room. So the chair, she had Jesus saves or Jesus something on the back of her jacket. So this is how I'm going to approach this. So I told her, well, I know that I don't think that people get wrongly convicted, but wasn't Jesus wrongly convicted?
Wow.
So we started having church in that program.
Really? Father Ray.
Yeah, I said Jesus came to, according to the Bible, it came for the salvation of the whole world. And it killed him anyway. You know, what was his crime? Bringing salvation to mankind and womankind? Right. And he killed him. I looked at it like that. I said, yeah, so, you know, there are people that can get wrongly convicted and crucified and punished. She said, oh, my Lord. And she went to that. So she said, I'm going to vote for you to go have a conversation. So I went to a conversation, and that was disastrous.
Why?
During the time, because they don't believe in wrongly convicted. Mm-hmm. They felt that how dare me say that the police were corrupt. In fact, he was an ex-police officer himself. But at the time, Kwame Kilpatrick was on his way going to prison. Conyers' wife, she was already locked up, I think, at the time. Conyers, I pointed out Richard Nixon had to resign. You know, so it's you know, sometimes we put these titles on people, the honorable this and honorable that. You're only as honorable that you bring. You know, the position is one thing, you know, that you uphold, but you can be a crook, you know, and nothing worse than a corrupt person with some
big title.
Title.
Yeah.
And so that didn't go well at all. In fact, he called me a sociopath.
Wow.
And that hurt deep. That was one of the deepest hurts in my struggle, that I knew that I would never get out going through the Department of Corrections if I stood with that position of being wrongly convicted. You know, that was
what would have gotten you out, do you think?
Well, it's what actually did get me out, was that there were documents that they hadn't disclosed.
And is that what happened when Bill got involved?
Well, Bill was able to do something that was unbelievable. That I thought was virtually impossible.
Really?
And that was the witness. Everyone tried to run for cover. Everyone that was involved in the actual commission of the crime, none of them went to prison. I did.
Oh my gosh.
The woman that they thought had something to do with it, which she did, was slippery. She would never admit to anything.
So how did Bill get?
Bill was able to go to her and get her to sign an affidavit pointing out the people who actually did do it.
How did you do that, Bill?
I don't know how
Are you not going to share that secret?
You know he had a black suit on.
We had sent investigators to her before. She didn't show up. She would take off. She would.
What do you think it was, Bill?
It wasn't our first meeting. I was counting the years, the decades when we were mentioned. When did I get involved?
Mm-hmm.
What did AIDWIC stand for? Because I don't remember that. Your memory is probably better than me. But AIDWIC was 5 letters. And it literally was the Canadian Innocence Project, started by no less than Reuben Hurricane Carter. He left this country, went to Canada, and essentially put this together. They were the people who were legally at Ray's side for years before I was kind of drugged to the table. And I have to admit that, and I can say it now in front of Ray.
And by who?
Maybe for the first time.
Who
The
brought you to
lawyers
the table?
and the organization of AIDWIC, because Barb said, you guys are in Canada, and maybe that guy, and she pointed at me and had me come to the library in Royal Oak to be face to face with the lawyers and other representatives of AIDWIC Canada.
Okay.
I sat at that table and I said to them, what you've explained to me, I can't help you. It's already too far gone.
Oh, wow.
Ray had been in almost 30 years at the time.
Right.
I was still fairly new in the actual innocence claim game, the space. And I'm saying, if we're down this far, how can I help you? And I was halfway to walking away. And I think it was Barb who convinced me to stay at the table.
Really?
And that's why.
Oh, it's your bad self, Barb.
That's why I ended up at Ryan Prison inside the city of Detroit. And yeah, it's always nice to have some guy on TV to show up at the door, because everybody says, okay, why is he here?
Right.
And then I go to see Ray. Then, of course, he's the talk of the entire facility, if not the MDOC for a while. Never mind all that. The real bottom line is Barbara Jean Hill, I had found once, even as a reporter, that I knew this was an innocent man. And so in the snow, I had found her 2 or 3 times on the very street where she lived back when the crime took place. And all wrapped up in boots and fur and whatever could keep her warm, because at the time she was semi-homeless. I was in a house with no heat trying to talk to Barbara to give me something about this. And she said, I've already done what I can. And so she had done that over the years. And by the time I got to the point where I was face to face with her, after months of trying to find her, and the house, the addresses that I had were vacant buildings.
Wow.
Okay. One day I'm on the street of one of those houses, and a guy working on a car, a set of brakes. I said, gee, do you know Barbara? And he pointed down the street and he said, right there in that apartment building.
Wow.
Okay.
You'd
now,
have never
Oh
found her.
my gosh.
no, okay. So I found her. I literally, she's up on a second floor apartment, and I'm standing there with some people up in front of the building, and they yelled for Barbara, and she stuck her head out. I know you. Come on up. And
Wow, he was awful brave to have him just come on up.
3 or 4 times, I had conversations with her, and it turned into photographs of Tyrone Pugh, a photograph of Charlie Matthews put in front of her with an affidavit that I had written based on what she had already told me. She signed it in front of a mobile notary that I brought to the apartment.
Oh, wow.
And I took her statement, her official signed, notarized, sworn to statement, to the lawyer that Ray was dealing with at the time. And I said, look, yeah, she was on the stand back then, but she didn't identify these men. Now they're identified by photograph and name, and she has signed under their photos, and she has signed the document.
Wow.
Let's get this thing going.
And she was there that day.
She was the person who essentially went into Reuben Bryan's apartment and was there essentially as a drug customer. But then at some point she walked to the door and opened the door for the robbers. It appears to be, to this day, a conspiracy. And this is what is infuriating about this entire conversation. I have been listening an hour and 5 minutes, and we need to say definitively, the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office, the Detroit Police Department, sent 1 man to prison for a 2-man crime.
Yes.
That has to be made very, very clear here.
And wasn't a lot of it based on Marie Clark's testimony at the time?
Well, I was fortunate enough to travel south, and we found her. She's still alive. And I literally in my phone have the most sickening 6 or 7 minutes of my life trying to convince this woman that she got it wrong back then. I show her Charlie's picture, and she still doesn't want to admit she could have made a mistake. Oh, no. It was him because of his nose or some crazy crap.
That is
And I passed the
Wow.
polygraph test, Stafford.
Well,
And these people were former FBI agents, and they specialize in body language and movements and so forth. And I passed it.
Oh, man.
But people, so they make identifications. They just want to stick with it. They don't want to know that they did something wrong. They may have sent somebody to the gas chamber. It's for their conscience. No, that's him. You know, and not even look at the evidence. Can you look at it? No, I don't want to look at it.
Yeah, like
You know?
she won't budge. Like even Ruben's brother, the police officer, was
Oh,
saying Ray is innocent, and
Michael.
she still is saying, "Nuh-uh."
Yes.
well, listen, it's been a gut-wrenching, nasty thing for me, but to know that I was standing here when he walked out.
So let's talk about that. Let's
Yeah,
fast
how you
forward to
feel?
that part. And here's the interesting thing. You're so calm, and this really
Yeah, I'd be getting nervous.
like has real works you up, Bill.
So why do we do what we do?
It works me up because to steal a life,
Right.
to steal this kind man's life,
Right. I
it's too much.
yeah. Let's fast forward. We go now 48 and a half years. And you find out what? You get the news.
Well, at the time, the prison that I was in, COVID was on the prowl. Was there? In fact, the prison I was in was the worst in the country. It was like 98% effect. It was terrible, and people were falling out. People were passing, and so I used to always tell myself that I would, if I owned everything in the universe, I would give it up just to be free, you know, and that freedom was priceless,
Yeah.
you know, and people have laid their life down in the struggle for freedom. And so I wanted to be exonerated, you know, get money or whatever. That's important. I want to prove my innocence. And so the powers that be, you know, it wasn't because they were trying to be nice to me. You know, the evidence that they withheld, it's called a Brady violation. And that was the evidence that they knew was there all along.
Wow.
Because when the police come to a crime scene, they know what the person being charged doesn't know. You know, I wasn't there when they were interviewing Bob. I've never been in that building, so I didn't know what they gathered. But they did. All these years, they knew that this lady had said this guy's name. Yet the police never talked to Charlie. They never talked to Tyrone. They never interviewed anybody. They always acted as if it was one person, like Bill pointed out. And so they didn't want to let me all the way out. I said, well, can you take a no contender, no contest? You know, because if not, then, you know, we had to fight it another year or two. And again, COVID was bad. My wife had some issues, and I wanted to be free. You know, I just wanted out of here. Okay, just what I signed, let me out. I'm not saying I did it. I never would do that.
Right.
You know, and I felt that if I never get out of prison, I'm never going to say I did something I didn't do.
Right.
I've come too far for that.
Right.
If this is what I have to do, then I have to do it. You know, sometimes life is like that. And so the day that she said, well, you'll be out tomorrow. And I couldn't believe that. That hit me. I think I made cried a little bit or whatever. It was profound.
The statements were on television. It was a Zoom call with multiple screens, and Ray was on a screen, and there was the prosecutor and the judge and the attorney who was supposed to be a friend of all of them, supposedly to help him. And she essentially coughed up, oh, gee, plead to something and we'll help you walk out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That happened on one day. It was on television. And the next day or so, we went to Muskegon, checked in the hotel the night before, and we had cameras to see Ray walk out.
Wow.
And boy, that the prison was got in an uproar. Everybody was looking at the window and stuff, and it was interesting because they gave me a bunch of ill-fitting clothing, and I would have walked out in the towel. I just wanted out of there.
Yeah.
And so the shirt was too small and the pants was too big, and I just wanted out of there. So okay, can you wait and get enough? No, I'll go like this.
What were you thinking when you were walking out?
Wow. It's almost hard to explain.
Like, this is some bullshit.
I mean, you were there 48 and a half years. There must have been something you probably got used to, or people you became friends with, or I mean, that was your life for a long time.
Seeing the people.
So when you were actually walking out, what were you feeling? What was going through your mind? Was it bittersweet? Was it just get me out of here? Was it just?
It was pretty much all. It was pretty much all sweet. It was all sweet because I realized that you had to in a kind of abnormal situation, you have to try to almost adjust to abnormal type things in order to survive, and things like cell phones and all that kind of stuff, and particularly the cell phone. That part threw me because seeing people walk around with the thing up to their face. Wow. And even when we were walking together, everybody got on the cell phone.
Right.
And so I wanted to paint a picture dealing with the addiction to a cell phone.
Oh.
The obsession with it. But then I realized that cell phones are important, and that had they had those, I probably wouldn't have been there.
Right.
Prison. Prisons. Mm-hmm. So I realized the importance of it. But I remember getting in a car, and usually in the prison car, they don't have seat belts. So putting a seatbelt on was a little different.
Wow.
And we went to a restaurant.
And where did you want to go? I know this. Where did you want to go for the first time?
I wanted fish. I like fish. And we'll get through eating at this big knife on the table.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how much the institution had affected me. Mm-hmm. Because I kept saying, this is not my knife. I'm still got this prison thing because the knife is contraband.
Right.
But I'm free. I couldn't really adjust to freedom just that easily.
Right. Because you were free 48 and a half years before.
Right. Knife. And it wasn't a joke. I was serious. It ain't your knife. Don't worry about it. You're free. I'm like, oh, okay. So I go to the bathroom. I dish these clothes. My wife had brought me some clothes that they didn't, for some reason, didn't let me have. So I dished the clothes, put them in a bin or whatever, and come out with different clothes. But it always seemed as if people knew. I felt a little paranoid going into stores or places. And I remember one time I was in a store, getting ready to go in the store, and a lady walked up to me, and she said, "So you okay?" It's as if she could just sense it. You remember that, Bill? You was with me, Bill. She said, I'm like, do you need some help with something? And I'm like, I'm okay. And then Bill came and we went in the store. But it was as if she just knew.
Because 48 years you were told you were guilty of doing something you didn't do.
And I had a habit of, and I still do this, when I go in the supermarket, I always take the cart back in there.
Oh, wow.
Because I don't want them thinking I stole that cart.
Wow. How long have you been out?
2021.
He just had a 4-year freedom anniversary.
4 years.
Yeah,
wow. Wow. Now, you and Barb have been married.
Since
It's going to be 40 years in
Yeah.
October.
Yeah,
That's
Congratulations.
amazing.
Yeah.
all the people I met along the way, the people that it was part of the struggle. Again, I ordered her. She would
Mm.
speak to them. Um, we tried everybody but Jerry Springer, and reaching out to people. You know,
What is your new dream now?
to continue my artwork, to get more exposure. Uh, we had reached out to some people, including Snoop. You know, um, to hmm, the artwork mainly. Um, the story, get the story out to the police department. I'd like to see some improvement in that. Uh,
What do you think your main message is going to be talking to people that um, maybe have a similar situation, not 48 and a half years, but are finding themselves in a situation that they're wrongfully convicted, or just a situation where something happened that they had nothing to do with? Like, what would you tell them?
I think that it's important to always document where you're at. It's easier now with cameras everywhere
Mm-hmm.
to document uh, where you're at. And the again, contradiction is in prison. They watch you, have cameras everywhere, and they search you and this, that, and other. But out here, it's similar. So it's both good and bad. People want their privacy and stuff like that. And even with cameras, I see people going to stores taking stuff. But being able to document where you're at, because when I was at home when this happened, and I had witnesses to testify to that. It didn't make any difference. They say you did it, and that's it, and that was all that they had. Now they got uh, during the course of the robbery, they went into Ruben's pockets, and in going in his pocket, that meant it had to be like a tight fit, and now they got what they call touch DNA. They can get DNA by just a touch.
Mm-hmm.
Recently there was a scandal in the Detroit Police Department where Duggan and whoever else threw away a lot of the evidence, a lot of the records. They
Mm-hmm.
just threw them away, so now you don't have nothing to work with, and it took years for me to get some of the records. They got the records, not me. All you have is people allegations. So there should be, the police department's file should be open, the Freedom of Information Act should be where you're able to, after all, it's your life on the line. You should be entitled to everything, and disclosure. Now if something that points against you, they quickly present that,
Mm-hmm.
but something that helps you. So I think that being able to be careful with the people that you be with and be able to always prove where you're at.
What's the one thing you really learned about yourself over this time? Like in 48 and a half years, what'd you discover that you probably would have never imagined?
You'd be on a sticker.
Yeah, that's true. Who would have thought, right?
Well, yeah, that part, that the window.
I mean, I guess like
Well,
when I listen to your story, I think to myself, did you ever imagine that you would have that kind of mindset that could get you through it, what you went through? Because that would break a lot of people.
Well, I started noticing cracks in the window. The window
So you paid attention.
that I said I would scream and no one would hear me.
Hmm.
You know, in fact, that was one of the first things I said. When I get out, I would want to look up into the universe and just give a primordial scream.
Did you do
You
that?
know? Yes,
You did?
I did.
Wow.
And I've always been fascinated by the universe.
You know, I like to ask you one question. Do at any point all of a sudden you feel like this could be spiritual? I mean, you know, like why you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Why not me or why not Bill? Right? I
Mhm.
mean, when it comes down that hard, when it's like that innocent and it can still be considered, you know, guilty, I just wonder, you know, do you start thinking past just being on the street now? It's over our heads, you know what I mean? Like it's nothing that can happen. Like, I just wonder.
Do I look at it from a spiritual point of view?
Yeah.
Oh, of course. You know, that's one. Again, when I look at Martin Luther King and people like that, people who put their life on the line, and still, you know, did what they did. You know, and so I think that we all should have something that we're willing to sacrifice our life for.
Right.
You know, and knowing that I was wrongly convicted, I was innocent, and that if I kept striving, you know, if I could only reach out to the right people, you know, it would make a difference.
Right.
You know, power in the people, you know,
Right.
and so that makes a difference. The pain, you know, even pain can be used in a productive way, you know, and that's what art allows, you know, and I notice that the arts are related like cousins and brothers and sisters. Music is related to painting. Painting is related to singing. You know, all of it is interreacted. And this is ways that, you know, people like Bob Marley or Stevie Wonder and, you know, Miles Davis and, you know, John Coltrane, you know, who dedicated a record, Love Supreme, you know. And so the music and art is a way of challenge. You know, when you look at Billie Holiday and people who are doctors, you know, nurses and firemen and people who went into the military, you know, and the things that Vietnam, for example, I knew a lot of guys who went in and what it done to them, and but they did it anyway, you know. And so I don't look at, even though I wasn't too big on Vietnam myself for political reasons, I have to respect those who struggle and overcome it. You know, and overcome it. So I look at it from a spiritual point of view, man.
You know,
Jackie, I know you wanted to try to do this in about 90 minutes. So I do, since we're talking about art and the importance of it.
Yes.
We should talk to the youngest person here at the microphone.
Miss Shelby.
Because Shelby brought light to this situation. She introduced so many young people to this man.
Yep.
So
tell us.
Yeah, so I got introduced, I think we re-picked up the case in 2020, early 2020, before COVID shut down. So I'm the last person on the team that got to be confronted with the case. But yeah, I think during COVID, people were looking for something to get mad about. Shortly after COVID shut down, I think George Floyd was murdered. So people's trust in the police and the government was at an all-time low. Right. And activism was at an all-time high. So it was a great opportunity to show the Detroit community on an artist that they missed out on. His murals should be all over the city. And I think a lot of up-and-coming artists sympathize with that. And really, as you saw Bill get so active, they all did too. They don't want to see that kind of thing happen in their city.
And I know you have some events coming up or some big plans for Ray.
Big plans always.
Can you talk about that or?
It's at the very beginning, but we would like to have a 5-year freedom anniversary for him. That's bigger downtown. I would hope it's a festival. We'll see what we can do in a year, but I would love to really showcase Ray's art bring other nonprofits that are doing the same type of work that Bill and I are doing.
Where is his art? Like, how can you order art?
I brought some with me.
He brought
Okay,
some with
But
him.
for people that aren't here,
Oh,
how would they get it?
We have a website.
You do have a
Yeah,
website. What is it?
freeraygray.com.
Okay, and you can order the
Yes.
prints.
Yes.
Okay, and can they get them signed, or are they signed? Do you
Yeah.
sign them?
Well, this time after I paint the pictures, yeah.
Okay, so
So if it's an original, it'll be signed.
okay,
Yeah.
so it's freeraygray.com is
Correct.
the website, which I think if we don't have it up, we'll make sure we do have it up. But people can order your prints, right?
Yes.
Okay,
And they can commission work too.
Yeah.
Oh, you
commission
do?
work too. A lot of my work is sort of surrealist, and the beauty of art in all forms is that to explain some things you might say, but this guy's crazy, but if you paint it, like I got one dealing with fish, the life of fish and ants. I love ants, and in fact I don't kill ants. Ever since I was a child, I loved ants, and I like the way that they work and the unity that they have. And so,
Can we show these?
yes, I use ants to as
Here,
a
Shelby.
metaphor sometimes for people. But some man,
Mm.
this guy's crazy. I fish with an umbrella. What do a fish need an umbrella for? And so, but somebody might like that as a painting. That's ants coming
Oh,
together.
so this is all ants right
Yeah.
here. So let's show this. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe we should take some pictures of these after and put them
we'll
up.
Yeah.
take
That's
pictures
probably
of
the
them
best
on
way.
the
This is
website.
Okay,
pretty
Yeah.
special right
We'll
here.
post
This is
it.
original,
So,
yeah.
wow, these
That's
are
called
beautiful.
Justice.
This is
That one's
great.
Justice. That's the
This is
one that was on the
Justice,
Metro
yeah.
Times cover. I
How-
believe.
Oh yeah, no wonder.
That's on the cover of Metro Times.
One
Correct.
like that.
Wow.
Near
Look at that picture deep. It's deep.
That's the
Well,
Coltrane one.
Yeah, this Coltrane shows up nicely on your camera, but the reason I'm
Wow.
pointing this out is that a music professor from a Southern university somehow got wind of this picture. He had his associates in Detroit come to the show that we had at a place called the Congregation in Detroit. He paid $700 for this unit.
Nice.
Wow.
After it's been in his custody and on his wall in his office as his PhD students come through,
Wow.
I predict this one will be $7,000.
Wow. That's amazing.
7,001.
Those are
Wow.
so cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank
Your
you.
art's very, very
It's beautiful.
right.
to look at.
Yeah,
And it
that,
really
this is,
makes you think a lot.
And this one is man looking inside
This one.
himself.
which one is that?
That's what I had to do. That was
Wow.
kind of personal because I had to look inside myself.
Is that reminiscent of your dream
Yes.
in the window?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay,
Man,
so
you got great talent.
we're gonna.
If you ever
well, we're
need,
gonna
if you ever
look
need a
up-
band, let me know.
That's the one with Tupac.
Hmm?
Oh, you have one with Tupac.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's crazy to read about you and everything I was learning about you, and then to be in your presence. You have this. You just exude this love and this softness, and it's just
Oh, there you
Peace.
go.
it's
You're
just,
way
it
calmer
makes
than
it
me.
even crazier to me that someone
Oh
in-
wow.
the system. It just blows my
Wow,
mind
that's a
because
serious
there's nothing
picture.
about you to me that
Represents
correct.
Mhm.
the struggle.
This is.
You know what's
beautiful.
amazing? It's
Well, he made a record.
every wrongfully convicted person we deal with has got a heart of gold and
Wow.
not an ounce of anger about anything that's happened to them. And I think that's what
beautiful.
Way better.
we get
man.
so angry all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
We're yelling at each other when we're working, but
Well, that's the
Right.
thing I noticed even
seriously-
talking with
It's
you,
just,
Shelby.
It's emotional because
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like it's just you have this love and it's like you can feel the love from Bart. It's just it's
Mhm.
it's
That
so
picture.
profound.
That
and
picture's
it
beautiful.
That picture is special.
So,
so much.
just so because you have so many music fans of,
Yeah.
of this podcast, let me put this one out there and say that this one is for sale.
Okay.
That Tupac's picture can be yours,
Just get
but you need to walk in here with $2,000
At least
Minimum.
Free.
Oh, that's what-
because this is the
Free
original.
Ray.
And
Exactly.
if
You can
you
get a
have
hold of
it now,
Mhm.
if you get it now, your $2,000 investment is going to be worth 20 within 5 years. I
Yeah.
guarantee it.
Quite
Yep.
easily. Quite easily.
Amazing.
Just
Well-
have a ghetto.
And if a tariff
We,
happens
we
to come,
I wanted to say one thing.
yes,
The
yes.
Mona Lisa, man.
Your Mona Lisas are so cool. I
Yeah,
really
that's
like
it.
your Mona Lisas.
Go ahead, Shelby.
So Ray is the longest serving innocent person in the United States. And he is also, at the time of his release, he was the longest serving Michigan inmate. So he has served longer than any guilty person in the state of Michigan.
Damn.
17,604 days.
Did you get an award for that? You should have left out that mother with a
It's got-
trophy and
it's-
shit.
he is
Not even an
dubious.
apology.
So
That's dubious.
let me ask you something. We're going to wrap this up. And first of all, thank you for being here. This was
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank both of you, Shelby
Thank
and
you
Bill.
for so much.
Appreciate it. Bill,
Yeah.
when is
Some
the book
special
coming out
shit.
real quick before
Oh,
I
you
wrap
grill
this
him
up?
every time.
Okay.
Bill's never gonna come back.
Let's say 2025, summer of 2025.
Okay, fair. That's good.
It's
The,
right around
the
the corner.
advanced
Your
marketing
pre-sale
I
is-
understand.
Thank you
Pre-sale
so
will
much.
be for the book
Book,
fair in Detroit.
yes,
Yes.
July 21st. Okay.
July
20th.
July 20th.
Oh, is it July 20th? It's a
Yes.
Sunday.
Yes.
Whatever. Okay.
There's so
Ray,
much going on this
one
summer.
final question
Look at
here.
this one.
Okay.
That's nice.
So delay does
You
not
look
mean
good on
defeat.
camera.
Okay. Delay does not mean defeat. So you had all your dreams. Now you're out. You're on a whole different journey. What do you want your legacy to be? What's going to be the last chapter?
Resilience, I guess.
Resilience.
Perseverance.
Love it.
With a capital P.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uppercase for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure.
And Coach Jesse Jackson, keep hope alive.
Keep hope alive.
Shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, just don't give up.
Don't give up. All
I
right.
feel like we really
Thank you.
need to get on the horn and start really pressuring. Like, not that I have much influence on it, but I mean, don't you think that his artwork should be on some of Snoop's albums as well?
Hey, we
Come
gotta be
on.
on something.
I
Don't
think so.
you know,
Hmm.
I can't speak for another man, but I do know that I would be glad to show some stuff.
That's awesome.
You know, this is the collaboration.
Right.
You just met me.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just seeing the art, so you never know what can happen next.
Right.
You know, but it has to get there first.
And
then you have to
you always make
look
things
at it.
happen.
I really do.
So,
He
I
does.
pat myself on
Let's
the
do
back.
it.
Man of his
Keep
word.
her
all right, guys. Well, we
All
have
right.
to wrap it up.
This has been great.
This has
man.
been great. Thank you.
so much.
And
Thank you,
please
thank
keep
you.
us
Man, you like-
posted.
Yes.
Keep us
You're
posted
invited to everything.
on the events. Keep us posted on the book. Keep us posted with all that. Ray, we're going to promote your artwork. And you know, I just think there's something
We're
huge coming
constantly
for
Another
you.
man of his
I
word.
really think there's something big that's going to happen.
Let's
I
make
do.
it happen
And
by
you
next
tell
year.
us what you need for this 5-year festival.
Let's do
Yes.
it. Yes.
Yeah, if you need a band, I'm
Yes.
serious when I say that. You
We're
know,
there.
We're here.
we got music locked down. We got a lot
love it.
locked down.
We
I
got
got,
it
a,
on
I got a
live.
nephew. His name is Ray Great too. He's a rapper.
Okay,
Oh,
so
There
you
you
okay.
go.
You know, we got
Send them
this
cheese
show.
way.
I got nothing but producer skills and music for him.
Okay.
All right, we got to wrap it up before
Yep.
it
No,
costs
we're getting in
trouble now.
$10,000.
That's okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Ray,
Thank you, Ray. Thank
Barbara,
you so
thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
Bill, you the